As we go down the levels, we start hitting a 0.5 or lower. The fifth strategy, word processors. For kindergarten and first grade, I suggest that your children write with paper and pencil because there is so much research that connects paper, pencil to spelling, and also the spelling also connects to good reading. Using word processors, that is a strategy that I would suggest that you would start in late third to fourth grade because our research is showing us that the paper pencil to letter formation and learning how to spell words and connecting that to reading comprehension and learning how to read is essential. Keep the paper pencil with your youngsters. It doesn't mean that they can't go on a computer and learn some word processing. But in the writing portion, we want to really keep that paper pencil there. It will help your students with the spelling as well as connected to their reading. The sixth strategy, complex sentence combining. That is, again, another strategy that you want to show your children how sentences work. The problem is that we don't want to do that in isolation. That's why so many activities that you will see in this book not only go down to a sentence level, like for instance, when we're teaching movie scripts, children are learning how to take a picture, an idea, and form it into a sentence, which eventually connects to other sentences to create a story. The same goes with informative explanatory writing. I'll have all different types of activities where children will be doing these creation of sentences from that oral language, from that idea, taking it to oral language, and finally having a sentence. As well as for opinion writing, you will take the idea, what elements students need for an opinion, and finally form sentences orally, having an oral rehearsal before they ever go to that actually written part. Because the language piece is the critical piece to form those sentences, and then finally putting it down on paper for writing. If you can say it, you can write it. The next two activities, pre-writing and inquiry activities, what I want to talk about that really quickly is when we talk about pre-writing, all of that brainstorming and that information, that's critical when children are writing informative explanatory text. They have to know the information before they can write about it. So you'll see in this manual that we have to have ways to teach children how to write and also provide them with information. The brainstorming is an activity where you're actually going to have the children brainstorm and show them how to organize their ideas so that they can actually go to writing. Our inquiry activities, that tends to be more of oral language as well, where we're analyzing information and we're understanding it at a higher level. And again, that is going to connect to our language arts, to our science, where we're actually taking our core curriculum so that we can go to deeper levels of understanding. Let's look at the 9th rank strategy in the Writing Next research, and that is process writing, which is known as Writer's Workshop. It only has a 0.32 effect size. Writer's Workshop has been something that we've always been told, design your writing instruction around Writer's Workshop. The problem is that when I'm working with kindergarten and first graders, and if they have very little, if any, understanding of how to plan, organize their writing, write it down on their paper, for them to walk through this Writer's Workshop process type of writing, it's already assuming they have many skills, which many children don't. It tends to have a low effect size because we're assuming children have many skills already. Let me give you an example. Let's go back to when I was in my kindergarten or first grade classroom trying to implement a Writer's Workshop. I would model up on the board a strategy in writing. Then I would have the children go back to their desk and I would have them try it. I may have had a couple of children who actually could take what I showed them and implement it into their own work. Many other students had no idea what to do because they didn't have a foundation. They didn't know how to write. They needed the explicit, direct instruction. They needed to teach their brain how to actually walk through and plan their writing and write it out. So what my classroom ended up looking like was children at their desk, either staring at me, raising their hand, or getting out of their chair, trying to come and get help. Then I would try to have all the children just sit in their seat, even if it just meant that they were drawing a picture. And I would go around and try to work with one child at a time. And what happens? I would go to a child, they would be so lost, I would grab a chair, sit next to them, and basically give them a one-on-one lesson of how to write. And the next thing I knew, I started having a line of children right there next to me, lining up. Oh, she's giving lessons. We'll just wait our turn so she can show us how to write too, because we don't know what to do. So when I looked at the Writer's Workshop model, one of the elements that I saw there was we're missing what we need to do before kids enter Writer's Workshop, and that is the #1 strategy, explicit direct instruction. When you finally have children ready for Writer's Workshop, they have in their brains the steps they need to go through in order to plan their paper, to draft it, to revise and edit it. They have those skills. When you're in Writer's Workshop with those particular children, you're able to actually give them feedback, 1 or 2 teaching points, so they can hone in and improve detailed parts of their writing. If they're totally lost, Writer's Workshop is not going to teach them exactly what they're supposed to do. Many children become frustrated, or they just fill their paper with writing and it's just a mess. So let's go back and review. We want direct, systematic instruction. We want our children to be able to summarize. We want our children to collaborate so that we can slowly and gradually release responsibility. We want to provide them with specific goals. We want to have sentence combining. We want our children to have models so that they can actually look at where they're going. What is it supposed to look like? These are many of the different strategies that have been cited with empirical evidence, effect sizes that show what are the top strategies in writing, all the way down to least effective strategies that these 2 researchers have identified in the research study Writing Next. Now that we've looked at the different strategies, the how do I teach students, in other words, what strategies do I use, the next question may be engagement. How do I engage all my students so that they actually are going to learn these strategies? And that's why I've cited Dr. Willingham, who is a cognitive scientist, and one of his books is Why Don't Students Like School? One of his major findings in his book is that the brain doesn't like to learn. It doesn't like it. It's a very difficult and painful task for the brain to learn. So one of the points that Dr. Willingham is talking about when the brain learns is that we have to give many, many repetitions to the brain so that it finally masters whatever your skill is that you're teaching or strategy. We have to be specific and we have to repeat, repeat, repeat. So repetitions over and over and over again so that the brain finally can do that activity, that strategy, that skill with ease. That's that mastery piece. So to connect that to everyday life, let's say I'm a basketball player and I'm learning how to do a layup. That's a very awkward motion to learn how to do a layup. So what does your brain have to do? It not only has to understand the concept, but your body has to go through that motion over and over and over. So the muscle memory, that repetition of doing it correctly. Because any coach can tell you, if somebody learned how to do that layup over and over and over and over again, incorrectly, then what happens? It's very difficult to undo that process and then correct it. So what do we need to do? Just like when we're teaching a child how to do a layup in basketball, we need to teach them correctly with many repetitions. That's the whole point of Dr. Willingham, is repetitions will teach your brain how to do something that seems painful and difficult and reach that mastery level so that you're using that new skill with ease. You don't even think about it. Let's go back to the layup. I do so many layups over and over and over again. What happens? I focus on the game. I can be a better basketball player because now when I go to do the layup, I don't even think about it. I can just do it. It's the same thing with writing. When we teach these specific direct instruction skills, we can't just teach them once or twice. We have to teach them all the time, over and over and over until the brain has that memory, that mastery of that skill, that strategy, and now the child can use those steps that they've mastered to help them become better writers, to plan their papers, to plan good sentences, to organize their ideas. Now they can use these steps as their tool, their skill to become good writers. That's the point of Willingham, is take it to mastery. And how do you do that? Through repetitions. And always go back to, we want to make sure students are doing it correctly. So let's make sure when we are teaching really good writing strategies explicitly, with all those elements that we learned from Writing Next, all those good strategies, that we keep repeating them over and over and over again for mastery. And that's essential. You're going to see in my program that I do something called Plan, Talk, Write. And that is where we're going to plan, and we're going to have many of those rehearsals of writing, which is going to be the repetition. So you're going to have your plan, the specific steps that you're going to keep practicing over and over again. And then you're going to have the talk where you're rehearsing your plan over and over and over again. And then finally, you're going to take it to the writing, where again, you will be talking as you write. Think about all the repetitions that are involved when you're planning and talking, following the same steps, rehearsing your plan over and over again. Finally, being fluent in your plan. You can say it how you're going to write it, then you're going to write it down. So you're talking as you write. This is the whole point of writing, is that your brain understands how to plan, that you have the language and the ability to say that plan, and then finally, you're writing it down. We're going to pull all this research together in our manual so that I can show you how you can teach kids to do this process.